Somewhere between 11 and 11:30 p.m. on a mid-April day in a small Midwest town, two guys named Terry, me, and Will, my friend, were sitting around playing video games and had no marijuana. That's when I pulled out about 7 grams of months-old Datura noxia seeds, which were only known to me as moon lily variety at the time. These were from home plants of a relative to be passed to another until I had put them away and forgot about them. I don't remember how I came to learn that the moon lily was intoxicating because I didn't know its proper name for months after the experience. I assumed they were a variety of morning glory seeds, only learning the truth after following up on experiences in the archives. Nothing at all happened after an initial test of a gram at most, so I figured it would be safe for me and Will to try 3.5 this night. So here Will and I are thinking, what have we got to lose? After all, LSD and mushrooms wears off within 8 to 12 hours. How bad can an organic flower be? We both ate 3.5 grams of sunflower-tasting Datura seeds, each on an empty stomach. Pretty goddamn bad. Within 45 minutes and still expecting nothing, our vision began to fail like so many reports before this one. I thought that would be the worst of it, but not quite. Will decided he should go home a little after 12 to avoid coming home to angry, worried parents. As he walked out the door, I looked into his eyes and knew that we were in for something big. I should have stopped him then, but we've both taken hallucinogens enough that I felt like he could take care of himself. As soon as he left, I was on my computer and noticed I couldn't read it, much less stay concentrated on it. Again, like so many before, I found myself searching for dropped cigarettes, but they were burning through and sliding under the sheets. I could feel the burnt holes and heat coming off of them, feel the cigarette roll away from me under the sheets. And then it hit me that I never lit a cigarette, but I sure needed one. Forget that I was just thrashing around like a wild man for imaginary cigarettes. It was time for the real thing. I actually smoked the same amount as I normally do, 30 to 45 minutes apart, but I always felt like I had one in my hand. Many times my index, middle fingers, and thumb would meet as I spaced off, and that would induce a frantic cigarette hunt. It was mostly happening in my left hand, which I don't even smoke with. This is the aspect I am most curious about of all my experiences. It's so common the explanation is probably very simple. At some time I laid down to sleep it off. Big no-no. I'm guessing it was around 2 a.m. by this time. I never felt like I fell asleep. In fact, I sat right up and started using my computer at one point. I opened notepad.exe maybe by accident, not really sure. What I was sure of though was that aliens were typing messages to me and replying in real time. The room looked disconnected and distorted with subtle colors like red, green, and yellow, and everything seemed liquid, like as if I was in an out-of-body state, or at least how they make it appear on the soap opera flashbacks. I was visited by some friends, though I can only remember one person in particular, my girlfriend. I saw her sitting behind my oscillating fan staring at me, saying nothing. I started yelling at the top of my lungs, "Why won't you talk to me? Just fucking talk to me!" when I heard a knock at the door. It's my sister asking if I'm okay because they heard me talking in my room, and I say I was just having a bad dream, which wasn't a complete lie. All it takes though is one look into my solar eclipse of a pupil and the story falls apart. She tells me it's 4 a.m., which I have a hard time believing because in my mind, my friend had just left and I was listening to music and surfing the net, waiting for the seeds to kick in that never would. Never mind talking with aliens or hunting for dropped cigarettes. Never mind becoming blind as a bat or hardly being able to swallow whatever liquids I drank to alleviate the dehydration. I didn't have the constant urge to urinate, possibly because I'd been trained from so many late-night trips to avoid leaving my parents' basement at all costs. But I did take one bathroom break, which I took time out from to examine my pupils. That was just the reminder I needed to realize that I was fucked up and needed to avoid all contact. After my sister's concerned check-in in the bathroom break, there was another knock at the door. This time I told myself I was just paranoid and it was my imagination. After 3 or 4 knocks, there was no denying I was in deep shit. I answered it to see my mother's face, grim and threatening, with the question taking no time to jump from her lips. "Are you on something?" A million excuses filled my mind and I can't be sure, but the one that I believe popped out involved taking a few too many antidepressants. Not a bad choice as the label says it may cause hallucinations, delirium, dry mouth, and all the other symptoms I had. And she would know that working in a pharmacy, so I would be off the hook, able to go back to smoking my cigarettes in insanity land. Not quite yet. She wants me to go upstairs and talk, make sure I'm okay. Bad choice, as I'm the farthest thing from okay. I found myself at the kitchen table near 5 a.m. jumping from the most nonsensical topic to the next. A wonderful show for your family? I think not. I would stop mid-sentence and come back into consciousness and think how much of an idiot I was for allowing myself to run off the handle like that, and the look on their faces in that moment of clarity was enough to shock me back into rambling and incoherent gibberish mode. This cycle went on for 20 minutes as I tried to be normal and thought I was playing them like puppets. That is, until I puked up a belly full of tea and half-digested Datura seeds all over the kitchen table. I was filled with dread that my lie would be discovered then and there, but it wasn't time for that just yet. Somehow, I managed to lay myself on the kitchen floor where I watched armies of half-cricket, half-roaches in awe as they marched in perfect strategic lines like you see in the Chinese military marches. I was also threatened with the possibility of visiting the emergency room, which between bug-gazing moments, I peacefully protested. After the nightmarish scene upstairs, I was somehow allowed to retreat to my room, unsure and only half thinking of what trouble lay ahead. I just wanted to be in the safety of my room. Once in, I immediately calmed down to my average state of being, although still experiencing the loose cigarette phenomenon as well as periods of spacing out and dreaming while wide awake. There were no more panicky hallucinations though. My girlfriend showed up and told me something bad has happened and she wants to know what happened. I ask her what the problem is, and apparently, Will's mom was calling up friends to see what poison had been given to her son. I then start a short one-way conversation about my grandparents who she barely knows for no reason, until I snap back to reality and see the familiar shocked stare. That was when I realized how much trouble Will could be in. Through a friend, I learned that Will came home and began talking to imaginary friends. He was as blurred and blind as I was, if not more. It wasn't the incoherent gibberish or the psychotic look in his eyes that worried his family. It was the fact that he had been found eating carnation baby formula, and when asked what the hell he was doing, he replied, "I'm eating McDonald's." Both of our vision was restored after a day of sleep and recovery, which surprised me reading all the reports here lasting 4 days or longer. I had to admit to my mother what I had really done, and it was humiliating, just like the time when I told her I had tried coke, speed, and basically everything else but H. This time it was maybe even worse, because I undeniably lost control, and it was all over a natural legal plant. I have not eaten Datura again and don't plan on it anytime soon. I did begin experimenting with smoking the fresh picked leaves, flower, anther, and filament, and the results are much lighter. After less than a gram of flower material, lethargy sets in, known around here as Datura stoned. Also, I have a bit of anxiety fearing another onslaught by this untamed plant. I have yet to experience drastic effects smoking Datura that I had while eating the seeds. Knowing what I know now about the plant, I regret ever taking it as I did. Very foolish, especially considering the drugs in it. Then I think of the experience and feel a strong desire to go through it again because it is like no other drug. Yes, it is one unique ride, if for anything to have a better appreciation for the capacity of the mind and the potential to unlock some heavy subconscious ego-crushing insight. But the bottom line is to not do this alone because reality becomes 100% subjective to a part of oneself that one may not know or even want to know. This is the closest thing to schizophrenia I could ever imagine, knowing enough to hide the fact that I had taken psychotic drugs while completely forgetting that I was on them. Scary indeed. I do not feel I was in serious danger or becoming sick from the seeds. However, it was obviously an unsafe state of mind. One last word of caution. It has been over a year since I ate the seeds, but over time I have caught myself dreaming while still awake in bed, believing it is all just a dream. Like many others into lucid dreams, I always test the boundaries of unreality by doing things I couldn't get away with in the real world, like tearing my girlfriend's panties off with my teeth, for example. Not a personal example in my case, but a very possible and potentially bad scenario if I'm not expected to act that way and if I'm not woken up in time. I have had these occurrences 3 to 4 times and never did before taking Datura, not even sleepwalking. I will be thinking it is okay to do this or that because I can just wake up or press reset like a video game when that's actually not true. That same feeling of stupidity I had between moments in and out of consciousness while on Datura is present after these rare experiences.